Hey guys, welcome back here to Intuitive Angling. Appreciate you guys coming by the channel. Guys, today I want to share with you all one of my favorite all-time memories and stories that I have in bass fishing. Definitely probably in the top, two or three for sure. And, I find myself thinking a lot about, I don't want to call them the good old days, but days of the past, because we are in an era right now. We are in a time frame of bass fishing where everything it's just upside down. It's complex. It's chaotic. It's divisive. It's lost a lot of its innocence, and that's what I crave a lot. It's like one of the things that I noticed myself as specifically over the past 2 or 3 years, is I crave the innocence of days gone by, and this is something that's not inevitable. People always say, stuff like that. Well, it's progress and you can't fight progress and things change. It's like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some things that are simply not better. It's like the way things have progressed, we've actually went backwards. And this story that I want to share with you guys today, it maybe, well, hopefully it'll help ground you a little bit and help bring you back to that reality of just a better time. So we're going to get into that in today's video. Also, guys, thank you very much for everybody that has supported Intuitive Angling here, guys, here recently with, all the changes in YouTube. Thank you very much for everybody who's taking time to hit that subscribe button here to the channel. If you haven't done that, guys, I'd like to just invite everybody to do that. Right now, we've only got like 30% of the people that watch the videos are actually subscribed to the channel. And if you subscribe to the channel, it's a good way to push the YouTube algorithm out there, helps the channel grow. So just thank you very much for everybody that's taking time to subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate that. Okay, guys, a lot of you old timers that have been with the channel, you've heard me allude to this a little bit in passing, but I want to give you the full story from start to finish on this thing that I'm talking about, and that is the first bass boat that I ever had. Now, this is not something just as simple as like getting your first bass boat. The ramifications of this and what this meant in the bigger picture, and the lesson that it teaches not only me, but it potentially can teach a lot of people, are far-reaching. So I want to share this in detail and not leave any stone unturned about this. I think you guys will really enjoy this. I started back in the early to mid-70s. My mom and dad got me a subscription to Bassmaster magazine. And I remember probably some of the first ones was like when Ray Breckenridge won the Bassmaster Classic and seeing his picture on there, and some of the early Bassmaster magazines, and it was just magical. It's like it's hard for me to explain that, but if you guys have ever seen any of the Bassmaster magazines from the 70s, it was the best period. It's like the Bassmaster magazine literally turned to crap after about 1980, but from about 1975 to 1980, it was a exemplary publication. It was big and fat. It was thick. It had some incredible writing in it. They had a section in it called Along the Tournament Trail, and they gave detailed, pictures and reports on the tournaments they had. The ads were incredible, like the old Stren fishing, line ads, and, all the Whopper Stopper. It was it's a magical time. It's just, if you know, if you guys have been there, you know what I'm talking about. So I didn't have a boat. My dad, we had a little fishing boat, but we didn't go fishing very much. Maybe about once every 2 or 3 months, we'd go down to Grand Lake or Table Rock. But I just was ate up with it, and I loved it. And I didn't get to fish that much other than like wading creeks and going to the lake occasionally. But I had this insatiable appetite for Bassmaster magazine. So fast forward to 1979, which was my senior year in high school, and I got me a little truck. I got a little beater $600 Datsun pickup. I was working at a restaurant, after school and on the weekends, bussing tables, restaurant called Rafters Restaurant in Joplin, Missouri, washing cars, also part-time at a car dealership called Tri-State Import Cars in Joplin, and I wanted a boat. And of course, I was a senior in high school, and I didn't have much money. I mean, I was only making like $50 a week, working after school and on the weekends. But anyway, I saved my money up and I got looking. It's like, okay, I got to find something I can afford. So I got looking in the Joplin Globe in the classified sections, and at a rummage sale, there was a rummage sale going on in Galena, Kansas, which was about right across the state line from where I lived in Joplin, Missouri, about 5 miles away from Joplin. And in this rummage sale, it said they had a 16-foot flat bottom boat for sale for $200. So I drove over there, and in this rummage sale, there was this 16-foot flat bottom. It was called the Applebee, all beat up looking. It had a rusted out trailer on it. The tires on it were about as big as a pie plate, and they wanted $200 for it, and I bought it, and I hooked it up to my truck, took it home, to my mom and dad's house, and I put it in the garage. I actually had a buddy of mine come over, and I lifted it off the trailer and put it on a pair of sawhorses in the garage there, and I was going to fix my bass boat up. Just thrilled to death to have it. And this thing it was rough. I mean, it was pretty rough looking. So anyway, I cleaned it all up, got it, setting up on the sawhorses, everything. And the first thing I did was Doug Hannon was a big, influencer on me. And Doug always, if you ever read many of the articles back then, he talked about painting your boat camouflage to try to keep it, hidden from the bass a little bit more stealthy. So the first thing I went down to the store and I got me a can of black and green and brown spray paint. So I camouflaged the whole boat, painted the whole boat camouflage. Got it looked just like Doug Hannon's boat, because Doug had a flat bottom also. And then the next thing I did, it was a flat bottom, so I needed to put a floor in it and a casting deck. So what I did is I went down and got some plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, and I put it on the floor, and in there. I didn't put it on the back there because I was going to get a tiller steering, so I had to be able to sit on the back seat. There was 3 seats in it. There was one in the back, one in the middle, and one up front. And then up front, I put a casting deck on it, out of plywood. So I had my casting deck there, and you can see it. You can see a little bit of the boat in the thumbnail of this picture. You can see the front of that boat. That's the only picture I can find of it remaining. But in that picture in the thumbnail, that is the boat that we're talking about here. And went down and got some AstroTurf carpeting and put the AstroTurf carpeting now. So now it's starting to take shape. I got a floor in it. I've got AstroTurf on it. And it's just like every afternoon when I came home from school, I couldn't wait to get out in the garage and work on it. I was so proud of this boat that I couldn't tell you, because it was mine. I finally had a boat I was going to be able to fish out of. So I worked on it every day after school, just loved on it, just absolutely was loving it. And then I had to get it rigged out. So anyway, I found a 1967 motor, an Evinrude tiller steering, a 1967 model, and I got it, real cheap. Put that 9.5 horsepower on the back there. Had me a 6-gallon gas can on it, and then I saved up my money, and I found a Lowrance flasher for I don't think it was like $55 or something. I bought this Lowrance flasher used somewhere, so I put the Lowrance flasher up front. And I got me a new foot-controlled motor guide trolling motor, one of those white motor guides with a prop on it about that big. It was a 12-volt motor, and I can't remember what I paid for that, but it wasn't. Maybe it was 150 or something. So now I've got a new foot-controlled motor guide trolling motor. I've got a Lowrance flasher up front. And that's the only depth finder that I had. I had a battery in the back of the boat, and ran the wiring all the way to the back there, for the trolling motor and the depth finder, ran them off of one battery, and I had my 9-horse motor. So anyway, I put it back on the trailer and everything, and the inaugural thing that I was going to do, I was going to take it down. I finally got it rigged out, and I was going to take it down to Grand Lake and launch it. So anyway, me and a buddy of mine, we went down to Grand Lake down to the Horse Creek arm of Grand Lake. And I had my little Datsun pickup in there, and little 4-cylinder Datsun pickup. So launched it in the water there, and floated it off the trailer. And it's like, I have never been happier in my life. It's like I got my first boat ready to go, no seats in it, because I wanted to stand up. And guys, I cannot tell you the feeling, the exhilaration, and the feeling of being in my own boat that I worked to get. I worked my butt off to get it, and it was a junky little boat. But guys, there was nobody more proud than their boat than I was. I took it to school with me every day. That's how proud I pulled that boat to school with me every day and parked it in the back parking lot. And then sometimes I'd go down to Grand Lake after I got out of school. But anyway, I only got to go fishing probably 2 or 3 times that winter in it. And the first tournament I fished out of it was that May. So I finished the boat. It was December of 1979, which was my senior year in high school. And the first tournament I fished was the first week of May down at Table Rock Lake. It was the Kidney Foundation tournament, buddy tournament. And I was going to fish it with this friend of mine that was in high school. So we went down there, and the only time that I've been to Table Rock was with my dad, just fishing. We'd fished down there ever since I was a little bitty kid, but I didn't know the lake very good. And, we only went 3 or 4 times a year down there. And Dad always caught big fish on a hellbender and stuff like that when we did go, but I'd never fished down there at May before. So anyway, put the boat in there. It launched out of Campbell's Point Marina, if you guys know where that is at Table Rock. And didn't know much about the lake. And the only thing that I had in the boat with me, I had 2 rods, and they both were brown live rubber jigs, and I had 2 or 3 jars of black pork frogs. And that's what I used, a jig and pork frog back then. And so I had 2 rods, 2 brown jigs, 3/8 ounce. They were bass snapper jigs. I got them at Southtown Sporting Goods in Joplin, Missouri. And I ran over to there was a cove about probably 2 or 3 miles down the lake, and pulled in this cove. And me and my friend, we started fishing. And the first pass down this one bank in this cove there, not too far from Campbell's Point, I caught about a 2.5 pounder right off the bat on the jig. And we didn't know anything about it. We were just casting the jig to the bank and working it back. And about 15 minutes later, my buddy catches a 4-pounder on the jig. We both were fishing jigs. By the way, we started throwing jigs because there was an angler down at Table Rock that won everything. His name was Dick Collier, and he still lives in Springfield. I just saw Dick last month. He was a big mentor of mine. He was a big jig and pork frog user. So we got a 4-pounder and a 2.5 pounder in the well. And then about probably 15 minutes later, I catch a 7.5 pounder. So we've got a 7.5, a 4, and a 2.5 in the boat. And like I said, we don't know anything about fishing, and that's the only 3 bites we had. So we ran back into the weigh-in at the end of the day. And back then, I didn't have a live well, so I had a big cooler with an aerator in it. I put this, basically it was a bilge pump that I put in the cooler and, hooked it up to the battery. Ran back to the weigh-in over there, and we weighed in, and we finished 3rd place in the tournament. There was 200 boats in this tournament. We finished third place in the tournament, and I won the Big Bass Award in the tournament with the 7.5 pounder out of that little junky flat bottom boat. And I'll never forget that in a million years, guys. Like I said, I've been to 18 Bassmaster Classics. I fished in 18 Bassmaster Classic and Forest Wood Cups. I fished in. I've won Bassmaster tournaments before, and that doesn't compare to, finishing 3rd place in that buddy tournament out of my, little cheap boat there. And I kept that boat for, I think, 3 years after that, and it was so old that the metal was fatigued on it, and it started leaking. And there started getting stress cracks back there around the transom of it, where you could actually see through it. And I did everything. I put solder. I tried to solder it, and I put this stuff called the JB Weld stuff, and I tried to put epoxy on it, and I couldn't stop it leaking. And finally, I took it to this welding shop, there in Joplin. And this guy told me, he said, Randy, this boat is so old. He said, I can't even weld it. The metal's so fatigued in it that we can't even weld it. And at that point, guys, I had to get rid of it because it was just leaking too bad and nobody could fix it. And I wish I would have never gotten rid of that boat, man. I still wish I had it today, because that boat, it's it just meant everything to me, man. It was when I think about that boat and I look back at that boat was bass fishing. That was bass fishing in the purest sense of it, where it was just simple. There wasn't anything complicated about it. And it's like the experiences and the memories that I have at that boat, there's nothing that stands out. There's nothing that can compete it, guys. I've owned close to probably 40, at least 40 or 50 boats, because I got a memo bill deal from Ranger for 25 years, and with Skeeter also. I've had a ton of boats, the best boats you can fish out of. And guys, I wouldn't trade that little boat that I had, that first one, for any of them. It's like if today, if you told me, it's like, Randy, we're going to give you one more boat to fish out of the rest of your life, I would take my little flat bottom back, because just the magic and the wonderment that I experienced that little boat can never be replaced anywhere. So the point of the video, guys, is, and you're going to hear me talking about this a lot, because the more that I get into this and think about it, the more that I'm fighting as hard as I can to bring back simplicity in fishing. Simplicity is where the magic is in fishing. And that's why I try to get everybody to resist and fight technology as much as you possibly can. People say, oh, you can't fight progress, Randy. Bullshit. You can fight it. Because you don't enable it. If you do not enable progress that is negative to the sport, then it's not going to take hold. And right now in the sport, guys, we have a bunch of enablers. We have a bunch of enablers within the tournament realm, within the tournament managements, within the industry, that enable the loss of innocence in the sport. And it's terrible. It sucks. So anyway, I know there's some dudes out there can understand it. Like I said, if you know, you know. If you don't know, I really feel sorry that you couldn't have been around in that era, because the magic and the wonderment is slowly going away from the sport, and that's a tragedy for everybody. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. We'll talk later.